Hmm? Oh, hey, what's up?
What you doing, man?
I'm just playing Gray Zone Warfare right now, just kinda
Gray
chilling,
Zone.
yeah.
Is that the game you made a video on last
Yeah,
week?
yeah, I made a video talking about it a bit.
Oh,
Yeah, so
that's
on.
cool. Giving it a try. Yeah. That's that's a big stash. You didn't buy? Come on, man.
Shut up. Okay, I was wrong about Gray Zone Warfare. Kind of. So I want to start this review just talking about this video that I posted last week where I talked about Gray Zone Warfare and the pricing models and how it was pay to win, and I was really annoyed about that. Now look, I stand by everything I said in that video. This is still a pay to win model because you are paying for an advantage over other players, and I have played Gray Zone Warfare. I own the supporter edition because I'm a weak little man, but I have played it, I own the supporter edition, and I can tell you that it is pay to win, kind of. And the reason I say kind of is because it's not as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be. When I made that video last week, I thought this was going to be kind of like a heavy PvP game similar to Tarkov, so the pay to win advantages were going to be huge. However, after playing it, PvP isn't really that much of a thing. It exists in the game, obviously, and if you go out looking for it, you are gonna find it. But for the start of the game especially, you don't really encounter any PvP, which is why I'm kinda changing my opinion on all of this and admitting that I am wrong. Now again, it is still pay to win because you are paying for an advantage, right? That gamma container that gives you more slots, that is an advantage, especially in raid, because again, you have more slots than the other players. Yes, it might not be that many, but it is still more slots, and that is items that you can't lose. On top of that, the bigger stash means that you have to sell less equipment, therefore also buying less equipment, which means that you have more money, which again is an advantage over other players. And of course, the starting gear and the starting money is a big help as well and gives you a good head start. So again, yes, I still believe that Gray Zone Warfare is pay to win. It is just not as big of a deal as I made it out to be. And I retract that statement because I was wrong. It isn't that big of a deal. And the reason it isn't that big of a deal is because of the way the game works. Now, that is what we're going to talk about in this review, because right now I have around 80 hours in Gray Zone Warfare. I have played this a lot. And to be honest, I have been completely addicted to it. It has taken over my entire life. I mean, seriously, I have been slacking on all my responsibilities. I have not really been taking care of myself. I haven't been eating much, sleeping. This game has just been really addictive, and it's bad. It's really bad. So all of that stuff aside, let's talk about the actual game, because that's what you're here for, the actual review of Gray Zone Warfare. And I want to start by saying that I am genuinely surprised by this. In that video last week, I said that this game was probably worth £30. It looked pretty well made, but nowhere near 60 or 100. I think I was wrong. I would happily pay £60 for this if that was the base price of this game, because it is really good. It is super addictive. As I said, I can't stop playing it. Now, it does have issues. It has major issues, in fact. The performance of the game is bad. It does not run very well. There is a current way to get more FPS by using FSR frame generation. Don't do that. That will crash your game likely. It triggers GPU crash jumps, which completely crash your game, and you'll probably end up losing a bunch of gear like me. So I eventually had to turn that off and switch back to DLSS, which just doesn't really cut it. It doesn't work at all. Now, I get around 40 to 50 frames on average, which isn't bad. I can play with that. I'm fine with a lower frame rate. You know, I was a DayZ alpha player. I've put up with much worse than this. But regardless, it is still a very low frame rate, so you should be aware of that. But again, this is an early access title, so it is to be expected that there will be performance issues and stuff. But just buyers beware, this game does not run well. Now, on the 40 series cards, if you use DLSS frame generation, that apparently does work pretty well. It does give you a boost. However, I believe there is a bug with that actually just removes your head and all of your items. Now, I'm not 100% sure this is connected to frame generation, but my friend is using it and he continues to crash and have that bug. And this bug will literally remove your head, it will remove your gamma container, all of your items on your body. You are just screwed. Now, there was a patch just today actually which apparently fixed this, but I have not tested it yet, or I haven't got my friend to test it since he's the one with the bug. So I'm not 100% sure if this is fixed, but just again, beware that if you have a 40 series card, frame generation also does not work on the Nvidia side either. So in general, my advice would just be stay away from frame generation. If you can put up with a low 40 to 50 frame rate, you might be fine, but again, just buyers beware, this game in general is having major performance issues. On the other side of early access, it is of course very, very buggy. There are a lot of bugs here. I have tasks that just reset for no reason. I have to re-accept them all. So if there's a quest which has like a bunch of steps to it, for example, in the late game, there is this one quest which has like 6 parts, and it took me about 2 hours to do it. There is a chance that your game will crash and it will completely reset that task. Everything you've done for it, just completely gone. So there are some bugs like that, and again, like the headless thing where you lose everything, there are also very game-breaking bugs. A lot of crashes in general. The AI is very weird as well. They'll shoot you through bushes a lot. They're trying to shoot you through walls. Their detection is a bit off. It feels like early Tarkov, you know, if you played Tarkov back in like 2017, 2018, when the scavs were just insane, it feels a lot like that, you know. The AI is unfair sometimes. They will one-tap you with an iron sight from hundreds of meters away, just out of nowhere seemingly. They will detect you in weird places and they will spray you through bushes. The game has quite a few bugs. However, it is playable, provided that you don't get that headless bug. Everything else is playable. You might get a few crashes, but the game is playable. Again, I have played 80 hours. I'm running this on a 3070 i7 700K, and it is really pretty good. I've had quite a few crashes. I've lost a few kits along the way, but ever since turning frame generation off, that has stopped. I haven't really had any crashes since then. And the actual game bugs are pretty minor, especially for early access. I'm genuinely surprised. I haven't like fallen through the map or, you know, like had weird things happen. It's just mostly been a few AI things. Even then, it's not too bad, I don't think. Again, they will headshot you from super long ranges occasionally, but it's not every time. In general, I'm surprised. I'm surprised at how unbuggy this. I was expecting a lot worse. I think that might be my thing. I was expecting a lot worse, and what we actually got is pretty decent, aside from a few game-breaking bugs, as I mentioned. Now, this game really caught me off guard, and the reason for that is because I was expecting Tarkov. As I said, when I made that rant last week, I was expecting this to be a Tarkov game, heavy PvP, that kind of stuff. It really isn't though. It doesn't really feel like Tarkov at all. Now, other than the stash and the inventory thing, which is obviously heavily inspired by Tarkov, there isn't really anything else. It feels more like an Arma 3 Milsim or like DayZ than Tarkov, because the way it works is you're basically on one big map. And scattered across the map is a bunch of POIs that you can either choose to walk to, which will take you a very long time but is probably safer, or you can just straight up fly there. Then when you get to these POIs, they are going to be filled with AI. And again, this is where it differs from Tarkov, because in Tarkov there are a few scavs placed around the maps, but never too many. Scavs aren't really the point. Most of the time in Tarkov you're in PvP, or maybe not most of the time, but you're getting into a lot of PvP. This game, I think personally, was definitely made for a PvE experience, because there are a lot of AI in these places. There is like a military base on the map, which is just full of AI. There's like 60, 70, maybe even 80 AI there, possibly even more, just in a complete military base that you have to raid and go to from multiple quests. So you're going to be spending a lot of time fighting AI in this game, and I think that's kind of what gives me the feeling that this is more kind of Arma 3 co-op rather than, you know, Tarkov. And the PvE in general is actually, it's a lot of fun. If you enjoy co-op games, you're really going to enjoy this, because it is a lot of fun going around with your squad, fighting against this AI. Again, sometimes it's a little weird and it will shoot you through bushes and stuff, but a lot of the time it does work pretty well, because these AI are pretty smart. They will flank you and play aggressive and push you and stuff. There is a lot of times when at the military base specifically, you know, me and my friend would be getting shot, we'd both get hit and we would need to like heal and bandage ourselves, and then the AI would like start pushing. They would start flanking the left and the right, and they would start coming up behind us, and the AI reacts to the gunfire as well. If like, okay, let's say you're in a base and there's a set of AI here that you start shooting at, and there's AI all the way over here as well. These guys will run over to help assist these guys that are being shot, you know, so you'll have the entire military base start pushing you essentially. And that leads to these huge crazy battles where it takes a long time to push through. Especially places on the map like Tiger Bay. Tiger Bay is one of the cities. It is pretty big, and there is an insane amount of AI. I'm talking hundreds of AI, and it takes a stupid long time to push through. And Actually, maybe even too long. And it's places like this where it really does emphasize co-op, I think. You can play this game solo, absolutely, you can quest and do it solo, but you are going to get to a certain point in the game where you need to go to these huge cities and stuff, and doing it solo is going to be one hell of a task. Because as I mentioned, the AI will just completely swarm you, and if you're on your own and you have enemies pushing you from all directions and there are people coming from further in the town providing support and they just keep coming, you are really going to struggle to get through that. And especially so when they start respawning, because we've had a few instances in Tiger Bay where it's taken us so long to make a push to get through the town that the enemies actually started respawning behind us, and then they would hear the gunfire and then just like start running behind us, and we would suddenly have enemies on our flank as well. It leads to intense moments and it leads to fun firefights, and I do like it a lot, but sometimes it does feel a little bit unfair. I definitely think in some POIs there is a bit too many AIs placed around, and it makes it like a little too difficult to make a push. But again, that just kind of emphasizes that co-op PvE experience. And again, I think that's really where this game shines, and I think it's what it was designed around, was a huge PvE experience, because you are going to find the PvE to be very challenging. And that leads me on to the PvP section, because to me, PvP feels more like a tack-on sort of thing. It was kind of like a last-minute, oh, we should probably add PvP to this because players are going to want that, rather than something that it was designed around. And the reason that I say that is, again, everything I just mentioned with PvE, but also PvP just doesn't really feel balanced at all, because the way this game works, money is very weird. You're going to get a large amount of your money through quests and tasks, because I think the idea is that you're meant to be a PMC and you accept quests and tasks and you go out into the world, you complete these tasks, you come back, you get a big reward. And again, that kind of emphasizes that whole PvE structure, right? Work alongside your squad, go out into the world, do PMC stuff. Because when you actually pick up enemy weapons and stuff, that does not sell for a lot of money, really. For example, I have a Mark 18 in the game that cost me about 9 grand to set up, about $9,000. To make my money back from that, I would have to do about 4 PvP runs if the players have somewhat decent gear. That is a lot. That is a lot of runs just to make some money back, and PvP to me just feels like very high risk for very low reward. And again, it's just because of the way the economy is in this game. Everything costs a lot of money, but it sells for very cheap. So going out and doing PvP, you know, there is the option that you might kill players and then you'll take their gear, but it does not sell for that much money. Whereas you can just go into a PvE experience and not have to worry about those other players. On top of that, as I mentioned, PvE is very challenging by itself already, so when you include other players into that, you might just find that it is very frustrating and just very annoying to do. I can't even imagine pushing into Tiger Bay, fighting hundreds of AI, while also fighting an enemy squad that is like right next to you. That just seems like it would really annoy me, and you would probably end up both dying to the AI, to be honest. And I get that's kind of the point, right? Like sometimes you might have to team up with an enemy faction squad just to make a push through a town. You have to make these decisions, and it's kind of like DayZ, you know, like, can I trust this person or are they going to shoot me in the back? And I like that aspect of it, and I do get it, but it just doesn't seem worth it. Why would I do that when PvE is available? Because PvE, you know, no one can shoot anyone. All the factions are on the map still, but nobody can kill any other player. So why would I not just do that? It's much less risk. All of the progress carries over. You know, it's the exact same between both game modes. And again, the rewards that you get for PvP are very minimal. Like, okay, I can kill a guy and get his decked out M4 and I can sell that for what, 1.8k? That's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. That doesn't even cover the cost of my gear. So the rewards of PvP just seem very lackluster compared to, you know, the rewards of PvE. I don't really see a point in playing it. But let's just say you use PvP just to go on and shoot some people when you're bored, or maybe you're waiting for your friends to get on so you can carry on questing together, so you just want to go shoot some other players. Okay, fair enough. I do have issues with the PvP in general though, and one of those issues is the LZs, and this is probably my biggest issue with PvP, because every faction shares the same landing zone as the other. This, I think, needs to be fixed immediately or changed, or something needs to be done, because at the moment it just does not work. So the first and obvious thing, this leads to exfil camping, which, you know, it was bound to be a thing. It's always a thing in every extraction shooter. But in this game, it can lead to accidental exfil camping. And the reason that I say that is because, Now, on multiple occasions, me and my friends have been waiting for a helicopter to come in and pick us up. You know, I go into a raid, I kill a guy, I get his loot, and I'm like, okay, it's time to extract, let's go. So I call in a heli, I wait at the LZ, and 20 seconds before my heli lands, an enemy heli lands right in front of me, and then they're at this LZ.
There's another helicopter.
Yep, that is not us, is it? No. At this point, I have to engage the enemy, right? Because my helicopter is 20 seconds behind them. They are going to hear it come in. They're going to literally see it come in. So I have to get into a gunfight now because they already know we're there. But the thing is, as it stands right now, players are immortal when they are on the helicopter and for 5 seconds after they get off of it. Can you see the problem here? So 3 times now this has happened where an enemy squad has landed just before I'm about to leave. And I die because I can't shoot them. They can shoot off of the heli at me when they're immortal. I can't shoot back. And when they get off the heli, I have to wait a whole 5 seconds before I can even engage and do any damage. So I think one of the main things that need to be changed here is different LZs for different factions, or just maybe more like different landing spots. Maybe we can pick our own landing spots if the ground is flat enough. You know how in Fallout 4 with the vertibirds you can throw a smoke and it will land if it's clear? Something like that would go a long way in this, because as it stands right now, exfil camping is a problem and accidental exfil camping is a problem as well. Running into enemies when you're trying to extract, it just doesn't feel very good to play. You know, pretty much every PvP encounter I've had, I've landed at an LZ, immediately got into a fight with another team that is there, went to get their loot, and then got into a fight on the way out as well because there are enemies landing. And all of this is just within the LZ. I haven't even left the LZ zone yet, so I have no idea how you're supposed to quest in these higher PvP areas. It seems nearly impossible to do. Again, I just don't understand the point of PvP. You're going through all of this risk for not only very little reward, but also you can't really make much quest progress because the LZs are always hot and it's near impossible to land or extract without running into an enemy squad. So yeah, in my opinion, PvP sucks right now. I've played it a few times. I don't intend to play it ever again. It just isn't very good. On top of that, you also have this map that is just full of foliage. There is, obviously that's the appeal, right? That's the setting of the game. I understand that completely. But I just don't think it works in a PvP environment because you're just going to have players setting bushes and hiding around. That to me isn't fun. I don't enjoy running through a forest and getting domed by a guy I couldn't possibly see because he's sat in a bush, or landing at an LZ and getting, you know, into an immediate firefight because again there's some guy sat in a bush right there. To me, it's just not a good setting for PvP, but that's just personal preference. Maybe you enjoy that kind of foresty jungle combat. I just don't think it works in a PvP environment. However, in PvE, it is quite enjoyable, even though the AI will shoot you through bushes. Now let's talk about the questing, okay? Because the quests in this game have what have been taking up my time, and again, I think they are the main draw of this game. Again, a lot of your money is going to come from quests, not actual loot. The loot in the game doesn't really matter. There's not a lot of stuff to loot in the world. I think there's like 4 safes that you can find. And as I said, guns and armor and helmets and stuff sell for way, way undervalued anyway. So you're not really going to be making much money from looting. A lot of your money is going to come from quests. So how are the quests? So the quests are a very mixed bag for me. And the reason that I say that is because some quests are really enjoyable to do. You know, they'll send you to a very heavily fortified place with a lot of enemies, and you will spend a lot of time fighting with your squad, really struggling to get through these enemies, and it provides a fun, challenging combat experience. However, there are also some quests which are just very, very unfun to do, and those quests I'm referring to sadly are at every point of interest, and they are the kill 20 hostiles and then inevitably after kill the boss. Now in theory, these quests should be pretty fun, because essentially you should be going into these places with your squad, having to clear out a compound, you know, kill 20, 30 enemies, whatever, and then after go back in to assassinate a high value target. That is some PMC type stuff, and it does sound like a very fun thing to do, so why isn't it? Well, it's because of one simple thing. There is no squad progression in questing here, that it just doesn't exist. So if you have 4 people in your squad, all 4 of you have to get those 30 or 20 kills. Now that part isn't too bad. It does suck in some places because some places will only have 15 or 16 AI. So if you have a squad of 4, you are going to have to come back and forth for quite a long time waiting for the AI to respawn just to try and get those kills. But the absolute worst part of it is the high value target, because when you have to kill the boss, again, you all have to do this individually and you have to be the one to make that final bullet. You have to be the guy to kill him. This to me is just terrible game design, because the boss, I don't really understand how this works. And I have 80 hours in this game, I've played it a lot, and I still don't understand how the boss spawns work, because there are a lot of times when I've been just sitting around waiting for the boss, and I will have AI spawning around, you know, I'll leave the area, come back, there's a bunch of AI there, but for some reason the boss just doesn't. And I don't know how it works, I don't know how long it takes for a boss to respawn, I don't know if a boss can just like sometimes not respawn. I genuinely have no idea. So not only do you have to do this 4 times, you have to go in, kill the boss, then wait for him to respawn, and then get every single person in your squad to do that, but you are also fighting against every other player on the server as well who might have that quest, or sometimes doesn't even have that quest and is just clearing the compound and happens to kill the boss before you do. It's not challenging or fun because it's a challenging task to do, it's just really annoying, and it's very boring. I spent 2 hours sat at Hunter's Paradise at one point waiting to kill the commander there, and he just never spawned, man. I literally sat there and I waited for so long, you know, and I kept having all these other people spawn. Never him, he didn't spawn. And then the one time he did spawn, I ended up getting shot in the head and I died, and then when I went back he was already dead. So yeah, these quests can be very frustrating, and I think if they would just allow you to do it squad progressively, so only one person in your squad has to kill him, that would make it so much better and so much more fun. And I don't know why that wasn't in the first place. I feel like that's something you would find in playtesting pretty early on. Because after all, this is a co-op game, it is a squad-based game, you're supposed to play it with your friends or with other people, so why do all of us need to kill this target individually? It just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't add to the realism either. But other than that though, I think all the other quests are pretty well done. They're very simple, you know, there isn't anything crazy going on here. It is all basically just go and fetch stuff, you know, go get a flash drive, go put something somewhere, go stick a tracker on a dead body, that kind of stuff. That sort of repeats throughout the game. I think after the first 6 or 7 hours, you would have seen pretty much every type of quest that you're going to come by. It's just in different locations. So the quest variety isn't that good, and there's not really anything special here, but it is fun enough to keep you playing and engaged. And of course, leveling up traders, you know, getting better gear, it is a very addictive cycle. I just think, yeah, squad-based progression would be really great, and also just maybe some more variation in the quest, but I'm sure that will come later on. As it stands right now though, they're not too bad other than those 2 quests that I talked about. Now as it stands in the game at the moment, there is not a lot of items to purchase really. There's not a huge variation of items in games, and again I'm comparing this to Tarkov. Tarkov has a huge set of bags, vests, guns, attachments, all sorts of things like that. Grey Zone Warfare doesn't really have that. The gun variety is pretty lacking. You have M4s, AKs, SKS, Mosin, a few pistols, and I think that's it. I don't think I've missed anything. So it really does lack quite a bit in the gun variety. There's not a whole bunch of different gun variation builds. You're pretty much just going to be using an M4 or a Mark 18 or an AK the whole time. And it's the same with bags and vests and stuff as well. There's not a huge amount of them. There's a good number of vests, and I think there's like 6 or 7 different backpacks, maybe 8, but it doesn't feel like there's a huge variation here in the stuff that you can not only find in the world but also buy at the vendors. So in terms of gun customization and just different gun loadouts in general, it does leave a lot to be desired. I think we need a lot more weapons just to add more variety to the game and allow people to add more variety to their builds as well. Gun customization, I can't speak too much on that. I'm not a huge gun nut, you know, I don't spend a lot of time customizing my guns, I don't really care for it. But all of the attachments that you can buy at the trader, there's not too many. There's a good amount, I think, especially for like an early access first release, but there's not a whole bunch of it. So I think adding more attachments, adding more gun variations and stuff, that's something that is also needed later on. As it stands right now though, I think it's pretty good. It does a good enough job at giving you a decent variety to kind of play around with, but again, I think most people are just going to stick to using the M4 or the MK18, especially with the ammo that you get for that, because you get a lot better ammo for that, for those guns than you do for the AKs. But as I mentioned at the start, this doesn't feel like Tarkov at all. Again, it feels more like Arma 3, so If you're looking for that kind of co-op PvE experience, I think you're looking in the right place. I think you'll have a lot of fun here. But if you are someone who enjoys the gun customization of Tarkov and building a bunch of different loadouts and spends a lot of time in your stash just modifying guns, and you care about the looting and going out and finding all these things in the world, I think you're going to be a bit disappointed with Grey Zone Warfare in terms of the amount of items that it has, so you might want to hold off for now if that's what you're looking for. I also want to talk about the factions a little bit real quick. I probably should have mentioned this at the start, but of course there are 3 factions in the game, and if you're in PvP, each faction is against each other, so every person that you see from one of the other 2 factions is going to be an enemy, and anyone that's in your faction is a friendly. Now you can determine who's in your faction by using the map. There's a blue square which represents your friendly, so when you see someone ahead of you, you're supposed to check your map and make sure they're not a friendly before you engage. Now, this idea works in general, that there's not been a lot of friendly fire accidents, or at least I haven't had any so far, but I can see it causing a lot of issues later on. For example, the bunker. The bunker is a very small part of the map. It's a very tight bunker which goes underground, and PvP in this area I can see being an absolute nightmare because there is no visual way to tell whether someone is in your faction or not. Everyone, from what I know, has the exact same clothing options and gear options. There is no possible way to know if someone is in your faction just by looking at them. You literally have to look at the map. Now, when you're in the bunker and you're in a very tight, compact space like this that takes up a very small portion of the map, telling whether that is an enemy or a friendly is going to be very difficult if you have friendlies in those areas. Now you can tell by looking at the general direction, so if there's a friendly in front of you, you can bring up the map and then be like, oh, there's a friendly in that way, I'm going to assume that's a friendly. But if it happens to be an enemy and the friendly is on a different floor of the bunker in front of him, or maybe more to the right in a different area of the bunker, but you just can't really tell by looking at the map, you're at a disadvantage there, especially if that enemy doesn't have any friendlies in the place, because he's just going to know to kill on sight. So again, that just kind of leads back to the PvP thing of I don't really see the point. It puts you at a huge disadvantage for very, very little reward, and in places like the bunker or any sort of tight, compact space, it's going to be near impossible to identify whether someone is friendly or not, and it just doesn't seem like worth the risk to me. And I think the whole faction system in general is kind of weird. Again, it seems more designed around PvE, I want to say, but then also why would you use different factions if it's PvE? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't know, I just think the whole faction system is weird. I like the idea of it, a bunch of different factions fighting on a map. They start in different areas and have different points of interest on the map that they need to go for quests. And I think the plan is later on to give them different things. So, you know, one faction will have AKs, one faction will have M4s, and one will have something else. And of course, you know, just give them different outfits and different gears and all of that sort of stuff. I think that is the plan, but as it stands right now, it's just, it doesn't really matter what faction you pick. It literally doesn't make a difference other than where you start on the map. And it just makes PvP really confusing, because it's either going to lead to a lot of friendly fire, which will get you kicked if you do it a lot, or it's going to lead to you getting killed because you just can't identify whether that guy is friendly or not. It makes PvP strange. I don't know, it's a very strange choice. Now also, let's talk about friendly fire real quick, because that is a thing as well. Of course, if someone in your faction shoots you, you will still die. If they do it too many times, they'll end up eventually getting kicked from the server, but they can still do it a good few times. So if someone in your faction who is supposed to be friendly sees that you have good gear, they might just be a dick and shoot you and take your gear, and you can't do anything about that. I think a very, very simple fix for this would just be disable PvP against people in your faction. So again, that would also help the bunker situation that I just talked about. If there is a friendly in front of you and you can't tell if that's friendly or enemy, just shoot them. Just shoot them anyway, and they won't die if they're friendly. I think that would solve the issue. Yes, it would take away from the realism, and yes, I understand that some people like that sort of friendly fire potential, but as it stands right now, it doesn't work, I don't think. In the PvP environment, I just don't think it works. And I don't know, the faction system, I'm mixed on. I like the idea, but as it stands right now, it seems pointless. So I guess we'll just wait and see where that goes in the future. But yeah, as it stands right now, it's just, I don't really see a point in it. So I think I've talked about everything that I wanted to talk about in this review. So how would I rate Grey Zone Warfare overall then? Well, it is definitely a fun game. I wouldn't have played it so much if I didn't think so. Of course, it has taken up a huge part of my life. It has been very addictive, and that is to me a sign of a very, very good game. However, it does have some performance issues and bugs which currently hold it back, as well as some strange design choices which also hold it back and, make it much less enjoyable to play. Questing can sometimes just be very unfun and boring, especially when you're just waiting for a boss to respawn. Not a fan of that at all. And PvP just seems like it's a weird kind of tacked on add-on rather than something that was actually thought out and designed around, because again, it just very high risk, very low reward, doesn't seem worth it to me. I'm sure there are going to be people who are going to get fun out of PvP regardless, just that potential fear factor, the extra risk, and just maybe having fun shooting other players. If you don't care about gear and money, you're in the end game or whatever, I can see it being fun then. But as it stands, it just leaves a lot to be desired, and again, the quests as well also I think need some work. Squad-based progression would be a huge one. And of course the game needs a bunch of new items as well, because there isn't that many. But it is also a highly addictive game that always leaves me wanting more. I'm always wanting to go back to it. I am enjoying playing with friends. I love the graphics and the actual entire map. It looks amazing. That the foliage rendering that they have here is some next level stuff. It really is. The way it works is everything renders for everybody at the exact same time. So if someone is on low settings and I'm on ultra settings, we are going to see the exact same bushes and shadows regardless, because again of the way that it works with the Unreal 5 engine. From what I understand, they developed their own tech for this foliage, and it is really impressive. Again, I'm sure that is a big reason for a lot of the performance issues here, but I also get why they would want to do something like that if PvP is kind of on the table, right? Because you want it to be a fair environment, especially in a sort of map that has so much potential foliage. It's only fair that everybody gets that same amount of foliage visible. I do not think it is a Tarkov killer or even a Tarkov replacement. I think people who enjoy Tarkov will get enjoyment out of this for sure, but it probably won't scratch that full itch for them, because again, PvP is lackluster here, and overall it is just a very different game from that. I think this game is going to stand out a lot more to those Arma 3 Milsim or co-op people, if you want to hop on and do some somewhat realistic gameplay with your friends. I think this will be the perfect game for you. However, if you're looking more for a PvP sort of experience, you might want to hold off a little bit and kind of see how the game evolves first, because it isn't quite there yet in my personal opinion. But as a co-op experience solely, it is a lot of fun. It is a really good co-op extraction shooter set in a huge open world. It feels a lot like Arma and DayZ, so if that sounds good to you, I recommend maybe waiting for some patches just to get the performance up if you're not a fan of that. But if you can handle a bit of low FPS and maybe the odd crash here and there, then you might want to give this a shot, because you might find your next addictive game. So there you have it then. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this review was somewhat helpful. I know I've talked a lot and I've rambled a lot, but that is how I do my sort of videos. So if you did find it helpful, be sure to leave a like down below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you know when I next upload a video. Both of those things really help out this channel a lot, and I would really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Jake, and I will see you next time.
An idiot. He paid $100 for this.
Don't look at my pants. Oh, his pants. His outfit altogether. Yeah.
Don't look at my name tag or his.
Nope. Definitely didn't pay 100.
Don't look at mine.
We're all fucking losers, let's be honest.